Hello and welcome to another video in my Web API.NET Basics series. So as always, go ahead, follow me on GitHub, website and email is there. Now in the previous video, we managed to go ahead and do what we set out to do, which is, let me just get my Paint software here. So new, don't save. So we got our API running, right, which does the basic math operations, and then we built a simple web app which talks to this API and takes the responses and displays the results. So we did that part now, and that's great. It's working now. So that I set out, and mainly the main thing I wanted to show in this project was how to collect some simple input. That is obviously essential. So we did that. Okay, now before I move on from this calculator series of videos, I want to show a couple of things which become relevant in later part of the series. Like obviously I have a game plan. According to that, I'm making these videos. Of course, there are a couple of milestone capstone projects we'll be building at the end of whenever this video series ends. I don't know when it'll end, but I'm just adding topics which are relevant. So now one of the things that becomes useful is that we do want to move things around and put them in class libraries. It is a good habit, really. So let's give that a try. So now here, if you see, and again, this is something that I have tried, but not in this specific context. So let me see if it actually works, right? So now you'll see here that I have in all these places, whenever I'm contacting the API, I'm replicating specific pieces of code. Like, I'm using this HTTP client thing here, and again here, and again here, and again here. Now, this is what is called as code duplication. Ideally, you should avoid duplicating the code. So if you have a specific block of code being repeated in multiple locations, that is not a good idea. So you should be able to kind of extract that away and put it in a separate place. So I'm going to try to do that now and see if that works. So what I'll do is I'll go here and I'll right click and I will say, before I do that, let me commit the project. So let me just update my work diary here. And I'm just going to go to this one. I'm going to say git status, and I'm going to say git add. Hold on, I think the web API is still running. Let me stop that. When I'm committing, I don't think it's a good idea to leave apps running. So let's commit that. Okay, I'm going to say ongoing code, right? Okay, it's not done yet, so I'm just going to say that ongoing code. Okay, so now I want to avoid repeating blocks of code. I don't think that's a good idea. There are many ways of avoiding this. So in this one, I want to focus on building a class library. So I'm going to say a new project, and here I'm going to say class library. Okay, so I'm going to say next, and I'm going to call this one API caller. Just a random name, API caller. I'll just call this API caller, and then I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to click it. Okay, so I have that already. Now what am I trying to do here? So here I already have a class created, so let's get rid of it, and I'm going to call this one, you can call it anything you want. So I'm going to call this the API helper. I'll call this endpoint helper, just anything you want, really. So I'm going to make this public so it can be called from anywhere. So what I want to do is I have this calculator controller. It makes web calls, isn't it? So let's try to wrap that away. So here I'm going to say public class helper, and I'm going to just say public helper. I'm just going to call this, it's going to return, what is it going to return? So what I want is a string. I want this result to be result. So I'm going to call this public string. I'm just going to call this one, why not? Just call this one. You can give a better name, but I'm going to stick with one because the first helper, something like that. Now, what does it need? It needs, what are the things we need? We need the full URL, right? We need the request body. Okay, so those are two things I need. So both of them are strings and strings. I think we are okay there. So I just need two strings, and the first string is going to be the full URL. So I'm going to say string. I'm going to maintain the same name, so when I copy paste the code from there to here, there won't be any errors. Okay, And here I'm going to say request body. I'm going to maintain the same title, and voila. Okay, so all it does is, and ultimately it's going to return the result, right? So here I'm going to come back and I'm going to say string result is equal to empty, and then just return it. So that's what it does. So now I am going to take this whole thing. Okay, I'm just going to take this whole thing from here and I'm going to dump it here, right? And I am going to say public, and I'm going to say async because it's asynchronous, and I'm going to say task, and I'm going to put that in that one. Okay, all right, so I already have a string result, so I don't have to this one. And obviously, you know, we don't need all this temp data and stuff like that. Okay, so what we are doing here in this helper, so it takes the full URL, it takes the request body, and it goes ahead and creates the HTTP client, makes the call, gets the response, and returns the response. So now I'm going to go to my calculator controller, and what I will do is I will comment this out, this entire block. I'm going to comment it out. The only thing I need is these two lines, right? So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say, okay, so all I want is the result. Now, instead of doing the HTTP call myself, I'll use my class library and the helper method to do the calling for me. So all I need is the endpoint helper. So here I'm going to say var ep helper is equal to new endpoint. Oh, I'm not getting the name, so let's just copy paste that. Okay, there we go. And we are going to say, now it says, it can't find it. So I will go ahead and say add reference to the class library project. This is the thing, because the API caller is a separate project. It's a separate class library. So I'll add a reference to it. And now I have the EP helper. So what does the EP helper do? It will take these two values, the URL and the request body, and do the HTTP call on my behalf. I believe it works. Like I said, I'm trying this for the first time. I'm kind of not these videos, I have a game plan, but a lot of times I'm just winging it. So that way, if I make any mistakes, you can watch it and you can also see how I fix it. Okay, so I'm just kind of keeping these videos raw, right? Just keeping it open, right? So what I want to say is, I want to say var result is equal to ep helper dot one. I'm just calling it one, and I'm going to pass the full URL and the request body. Right, and I know it is asynchronous, so I can make it await, and that's fine. Okay, now again, I'm kind of winging it, but I think it'll work, so we'll see. So as always, let's go ahead and put a breakpoint. Same thing here with the temp data, right? It's all good, and let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here as well. So let's check it out, see what happens, and let's put a breakpoint here as well. I put a lot of breakpoints. I do a lot of debugging, huh? Okay, so let's go build, rebuild. It's building. Okay, very good. So now we have two projects though, so that's why we say rebuild 2 succeeded. That's nice, isn't it? Things are getting slowly complicated. Yeah, okay, so calculate. I'm going to test with calculate because that's the only code I have changed. So I'm going to say add, and I'm going to say 20 addition. Oh, there we go. Breakpoint is hit. Oh, why is it not hit? What happened? Did it go into some kind of an infinite loop or something? Oh, I put the code in the, oh, okay, all right. A socket error. Oh, I was worried about this. Okay, all right. I was worried about this. Okay, all right, here we go. Let's see why and what is happening. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead. Okay, I was kind of expecting something like this to happen. So we have calculate, we have, okay, let's try that again. Calculate, okay, 10, 20, good. Okay, it is coming to this one. Oh, right. It's because my API is not working. Ah, come on. Nothing to do with the code I changed. The API is off. All right. Okay, there we go. I continue and voila. So that part is fine. Okay. Now, where did I use the class library? I use the class library for division. Okay, let's try that one out. Okay, so here we go. 10, 20 division. Oh, there we go. We are direct. We passed all this. We are not using our own HTTP client. I'm using the helper, and I'm going to continue. Nice. We are here. Good. 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 Nice. Look. Okay. So now here you have the result. Continue. Continue. You're back here. Continue. And it works. There you go. Wow, I wasn't expecting it to work without any glitches. You know, I took a shot there. Okay, all right. So what is happening here? So now, which means we don't need to put this code everywhere. I can get rid of it. And I can make the code smaller, so I don't have to duplicate myself every time. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go, okay, so before I delete all these things and clean up, I'm just going to put this code here, you know, in case you want to look at it, right? So let's go ahead. And here I'm just going to say create a new controller, you know, in case you want to look at it while you're looking at this, right? I'm just going to create a controller. I'm going to say controller, and I'm going to say API. Oh, this is the MVC controller, right? MVC MP controller. And I'm going to call this one calculator old. You know, I'm just going to call this calculator old. So I'm going to say calculator old controller.cs. Okay. So there you go. So here I'm just going to copy the existing calculator code in case you want to look at it. And I'm just going to put all this stuff that we did. So I'm just going to call this one here. Because I'm about to delete a bunch of stuff. So in case you want to look at it, you can look at it later, right? So let's take this like this. Go to calculator old. And I'm just going to dump it here. And again, just for your reference. So in case you want to look at this, you can look at it. That's your call, because I'm about to modify a lot of code. Like in case you're watching the previous video and you come here and you're like, hey, what happened to the code that I wrote in the previous video? So I'm just going to keep a copy here. So there you go. You have that calculator old thing. Just check that out if you want to look this. So let's clean this up, right? So what we're going to do is we know this works now. So all we have to do is let's delete all the breakpoints. I just need this everywhere. So the only thing I have to do is I can take this line, go to this one, and I can put this here. And I can take this line, I can go here, I can put this here, I can get line, this one here. So now I don't need any of these other things. So my life is simple now. So I will go ahead and delete all this HTTP stuff. Okay, there it is. So nice, so clean if you ask me. So again, take this, get rid of all the HTTP stuff. Okay, there you go. Come on. Again, here, let's get rid of all this HTTP stuff. Okay, there we go. Same thing here. We don't want all this. Okay, there we go. Cool. See, it looks nice. It looks nice, isn't it? See, this is what I'm talking about. You know, avoid, duplicating things. Just stop it. Don't do that. Okay, so now it looks cleaner, isn't it? So there we go. We have a nice, simple calculate for addition, all that matters, so this is what I'm talking about. So when you're writing code, you want to avoid duplication as much as possible. Okay, so that makes your code better. Okay, so there you go. So this one is fine, this looks fine, this looks fine. So let's go ahead and see if it actually works. When you make changes, obviously you have to test it and stuff like that. So let's go for it. Okay, calculate. Okay, 10 and 20. Nice. 10 and 20. Nice. 10 and 20. Hold on. Hello. It works. I always get happy, especially when I build. I'm usually happy when I'm doing coding and something works, but I get even more excited when the front end works, because I am just not good at it. I'm very terrible at UI. So just getting it to work, it makes me happy. Okay, there you go. So that's what I was talking about. So go ahead, when you have code that is being duplicated. Whenever you see not a single line of code, that's all right. But if you have a code block that is kind of repeating itself with very minimal changes, then that is an ideal candidate for you to kind of whisk it away. Now, there are many ways you can move things around. In this video, I'm using class library. There are so many other ways of making things different or separate and stuff like that. That's really your call how you want to do it. Now, in this video, I'm using a class library method. You could use something else. That's your call. So there you go. That's how you use class libraries and make your code a little bit cleaner, and make that less as well, and avoid problems. Less duplication, less errors. That's another reason to avoid duplication. So if you have code that is being duplicated, that means you're making yourself room for more errors. So the less code you have, less errors, and on top of that, it looks clean. And the less duplication you have, the less errors you get. Right? Okay, that's what this video was about.